The letter trembled in my hands, the words blurring through tears. Account delinquent. $47,892 owed. My name, Emily Harper, was stamped across a credit report I'd never seen, tied to debts I'd never incurred. At 35, I thought I knew betrayal, until I saw my mother's signature on the loan applications. It was a crisp October morning when I found the envelope shoved under a stack of bills in my apartment. I'd been chasing a dream job, a marketing director position, only to be rejected because of a credit score that made the recruiter wince. Confused, I requested a full report, expecting a clerical error. What I got was a gut punch. Credit cards, car loans, even a mortgage I never signed for, all in my name, all linked to my mother, Diane Harper. My own mother, who'd kissed my forehead at graduation, who'd baked me cookies when I lost my first love, had been living a double life on my dime for a decade. I drove to my parents' house in a daze, the report burning a hole in my passenger seat. Their quaint suburban home, with its picket fence and rose garden, felt like a lie as I stormed through the front door. "Mom!" I shouted, my voice cracking. She was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, her graying hair tied back, looking every bit the nurturing figure I'd trusted my whole life. My father, Tom, sat at the table, reading the paper, his glasses perched on his nose. They both froze when they saw my face. "Emily, what's wrong?" Mom asked, her tone soft but guarded, like she already knew. I slapped the credit report on the counter. "Explain this." My voice shook, but I held her gaze. Her eyes flickered to the paper, then back to me, and for the first time I saw something cold in them, something calculated. "Sweetheart, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. 10 years, Mom. 10 years of loans, credit cards, a freaking mortgage. You stole my identity. My voice rose, echoing in the quiet house. Dad stood, his chair scraping the floor, but he didn't speak. He just looked at Mom, his face a mix of guilt and resignation. "She birthed you, Emily," he finally said, his voice low. "She gave you everything. Maybe she made a mistake, but a mistake." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "This isn't forgetting to pay a parking ticket, Dad. She's been living a lie with my name." Mom's hands trembled as she set down the spoon. "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "We were drowning in debt. Your father's medical bills after his heart attack, we couldn't lose the house. So you stole my future?" I snapped. "You ruined my credit, my dreams, my life." The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken truths. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake her until she understood the weight of her betrayal. But more than anything, I wanted answers. How could the woman who'd bandaged my skinned knees and cheered at my soccer games do this? And why did Dad, my quiet, dependable dad, let her? As the argument spiraled, I learned the depth of their financial ruin. Dad's heart attack 5 years ago had drained their savings, and Mom, desperate to keep up appearances, had started small, opening a credit card in my name to cover bills. But it snowballed. She forged my signature on loan after loan, weaving a web of lies that trapped us all. "I thought I could fix it before you found out," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt you." But she had. The job I'd wanted, the apartment I'd dreamed of, the life I'd planned. They were all out of reach now because of her. I left that day with the credit report clutched in my hand, my heart fractured, and a resolve forming. I wouldn't let this destroy me. I'd fight back, not just for justice, but to reclaim my name. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the report, mapping out my next steps. I called a lawyer, a sharp woman named Karen who specialized in identity theft. "This is messy," she said, flipping through the documents. "But we can fight it. You'll need to freeze your credit, file a police report, and gather every shred of evidence you can." "A police report?" I hesitated. "She's my mother." Karen's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "She committed a crime, Emily. If you want your life back, you need to treat it like one." I spent the next week digging through records, unearthing more of Mom's deceit. She'd used my social security number to secure a car loan, a second mortgage, even utility accounts. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but it also fueled my determination. I wasn't just fighting for my credit score, I was fighting for the truth. When I confronted Mom again, she begged for forgiveness, promising to pay it all back. But the numbers didn't lie. $47, $8.92 was more than she could ever repay. Dad stood by her, his silence louder than any apology. "We're family," he said, as if that erased a decade of theft. But family didn't do this. Family didn't build a life on someone else's ruin. By the end of that week, I'd frozen my credit and filed the police report, my hands shaking as I signed my name. The officer, a kind man with tired eyes, assured me I was doing the right thing. But as I drove home, the weight of it all settled in. I'd started a war against my own mother, and there was no turning back. The police station smelled of stale coffee and regret. I sat across from Officer Daniels, his desk cluttered with files, as he typed up my statement. "You're sure about this?" he asked, glancing at me over his glasses. "Pressing charges against your own mother is heavy." "I don't have a choice," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "She stole my identity. My life is in pieces because of her." He nodded, jotting down notes. "We'll need to interview her and your father. This could get messy, Emily." Messy didn't begin to cover it. By the time I left the station, my phone was buzzing with missed calls from Mom. Her voicemails were a mix of apologies and desperation. "Please, Emily, don't do this. We can fix it. I'm your mother." I deleted them, my heart twisting with each press of the button. She wasn't just my mother anymore. She was the thief who'd stolen my future. Back at my apartment, I pored over the evidence Karen had asked for. Bank statements, loan documents, even emails Mom had sent from an account in my name. Each piece was a shard of glass, cutting deeper into the trust we'd once had. I remembered summer picnics, her laughter as we danced in the backyard, her voice promising she'd always protect me. How had it come to this? Karen called that afternoon with a plan. "We're building a strong case," she said, "but you need to prepare for pushback. Your mother might claim it was a misunderstanding, that you gave her permission. Family cases like this get ugly fast." Ugly was an understatement. When I visited my parents' house again, Mom was waiting on the porch, her eyes red from crying. Dad stood behind her, his arms crossed, like a sentinel guarding a crumbling kingdom. "Emily, please," Mom said, stepping toward me. "Let's talk this out. No police, no lawyers." "You had 10 years to talk," I said, my voice cold. "You chose to lie instead." Dad spoke up, his voice gruff. "She did it for us, Emily. For the family. You don't know what it's like to watch everything you've built fall apart." I stared at him, disbelief burning in my chest. "So you knew? You knew she was using my name? And you did nothing?" He looked away, his silence an answer. That moment broke something in me. Dad, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stayed up late helping with math homework, had chosen to protect her lies over me. I turned and walked away, their pleas fading behind me. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings and sleepless nights. Karen helped me file disputes with the credit bureaus, but the process was slow, and the damage was deep. My credit score, once a proud 720, was now a dismal 480. The job I'd wanted was gone, given to someone with a clean financial slate. Every rejection felt like a fresh wound, a reminder of Mom's betrayal. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ellis, to cope with the anger and grief. "You're grieving a relationship that no longer exists," she said during our first session. "Your mother broke your trust, and your father enabled her. That's a lot to carry." She was right, but knowing it didn't ease the pain. I threw myself into rebuilding my life, working freelance gigs to pay the bills while Karen fought the legal battle. She warned me that Mom might face jail time if convicted, a thought that both terrified and satisfied me. I didn't want her to suffer, but I wanted justice. Was that so wrong? One evening, as I sorted through more documents, I found an old photo tucked in a folder. Me, Mom, and Dad at my high school graduation. We were smiling, arms around each other, the future bright with possibility. I traced Mom's face, wondering when she'd stopped being the woman in that photo. Had she always been capable of this, or had desperation changed her? The first court date loomed, and I felt the weight of it like a storm cloud. Karen prepared me for what to expect. Mom's lawyer would likely paint her as a desperate mother, not a criminal. Stay calm on the stand, Karen advised. Tell the truth, and let the evidence speak. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered what justice would look like. Would it heal the rift between us? Would it give me back the years Mom had stolen? Or was I fighting for something I'd never fully reclaim? The courtroom was colder than I'd imagined, its wooden benches hard against my back. I sat in the front row, clutching a folder of evidence. As Mom entered in a navy blazer, her face pale but composed. She didn't look at me, not once, and that hurt more than I expected. Karen squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing," she whispered. But as the judge called the case, I wasn't so sure. Mom's lawyer, a slick man named Mr. Grayson, stood and painted a picture of a devoted mother pushed to the edge by financial ruin. "Diane Harper acted out of love," he said, his voice smooth. "She believed she was protecting her family." I wanted to scream. Love didn't forge signatures. Love didn't lie for a decade. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand, my heart pounding. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I swore to tell the truth, and then I did. "I trusted her," I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "She was my mother, my confidant, and she used my name to build a life I didn't know about. She stole my future." Mr. Grayson cross-examined me, his questions sharp. "Did you ever give your mother permission to use your information for family expenses?" he asked. "No," I said firmly. "Never." "Did you know about your parents' financial struggles?" "I knew they had medical bills, but I didn't know they were using my name to cover them." My voice cracked, and I saw Dad in the back, his head bowed. For a moment, I wanted to run to him, to beg him to explain why he'd let this happen. But I stayed put, answering every question with the truth. The evidence was damning. Forged signatures, bank statements, emails sent from an account in my name. Karen presented it all methodically, each document a nail in Mom's defense. When Mom took the stand, she cried, her voice trembling as she admitted to the fraud. "I thought I was saving us," she said. "I never meant to hurt Emily." But intent didn't erase impact. The judge's face was unreadable as he adjourned for the day, promising a ruling soon. I left the courthouse feeling hollow, the weight of Mom's tears and Dad's silence pressing down on me. That night, I met my best friend, Sarah, for coffee. She'd been my rock through this, listening to my rants and holding me when I cried. "You're so strong," she said, stirring her latte. "I don't know how you're doing this." "I don't feel strong," I admitted. "I feel like I'm tearing my family apart." "You're not," she said firmly. "They did that. You're just picking up the pieces." Her words stayed with me as I navigated the next steps. The credit bureaus began removing the fraudulent accounts, but it was slow, and the damage to my credit lingered. I took on more freelance work, scraping by while waiting for the court's decision. Every night, I dreamed of Mom's face. Sometimes the loving mother I remembered, sometimes the stranger who'd betrayed me. A week later, Karen called with news. Mom had pleaded guilty to lesser charges to avoid a trial. She'd face probation and restitution, not jail time. Relief and disappointment warred within me. I wanted her to pay, but I didn't want her locked away. Was that love or weakness? When I saw Mom next, it was at a neutral spot, a park near her house. She looked older, her shoulders hunched, her eyes avoiding mine. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know it's not enough, but I am. I wanted to forgive her, to bridge the chasm between us, but the words stuck in my throat. I need time, I said finally. You broke something I don't know how to fix. She nodded, tears falling, and I walked away, unsure if I'd ever see her the same way again. Dad called later, his voice heavy with regret. I should have stopped her, he said. I failed you both. His admission was a start, but it wasn't enough. I hung up, feeling the weight of a family fractured by secrets. The road to healing was long, and I wasn't sure I was ready to walk it. Life after the courtroom felt like walking through fog. I went through the motions, work, therapy, rebuilding my credit, but the betrayal lingered like a bruise. Every time I checked my credit score, I saw Mom's face, her tears, her excuses. I wanted to move on. But how do you forgive someone who stole your identity? Karen kept me grounded, updating me on the restitution process. Mom was ordered to pay back $47,892, but her part-time job at a bookstore wouldn't cover it in a lifetime. We can garnish her wages, Karen said, but it'll be slow. You might need to accept that some debts won't be repaid. I nodded, but the thought of Mom scraping by while I struggled to rebuild felt hollow. Justice wasn't as satisfying as I'd hoped. I threw myself into work, landing a freelance contract with a small marketing firm. It wasn't the dream job, but it was a start. Still, every rejection letter, another apartment, another loan, reminded me of the hole Mom had dug. Dr. Ellis helped me unpack the emotional wreckage. You're not just grieving the betrayal, she said during one session. You're grieving the mother you thought you had. She was right. I missed the mom who'd read me bedtime stories, who'd cheered at my college graduation. That mom felt like a ghost now, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Dad wasn't much better. His calls were infrequent, his apologies vague. She's trying, he'd say, as if that erased a decade of lies. One afternoon, I found an old journal from high school, tucked in a box of mementos. It was filled with entries about Mom, her baking, her advice, her unwavering support. I cried reading it, mourning the woman I'd lost. But I also found a spark of resolve. I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. I started a blog anonymously about my experience with identity theft. It was cathartic, pouring my anger and pain into words. Readers responded, sharing their own stories of betrayal by parents, siblings, friends. The comments became a community, a reminder that I wasn't alone. One reader, a woman named Lisa, wrote, "Your strength gives me hope." Her words lit something in me, a purpose I hadn't felt in months. Meanwhile, Mom sent letters, handwritten, heartfelt, begging for a chance to make things right. I didn't respond, not yet. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I kept the letters, stacking them in a drawer like pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. One evening, Sarah dragged me to a local art show, insisting I needed a break. There, I met Jake, a graphic designer with a warm smile and a knack for listening. We talked for hours, and for the first time in months, I laughed without a weight on my chest. He didn't know my story, and I liked that. With him, I was just Emily, not the woman whose mother stole her identity. But the past wasn't done with me. A month later, Karen called with a bombshell. Mom had been hiding assets. A savings account in Dad's name, funded with money from the fraudulent loans. "This changes things," Karen said. "We can seize it for restitution, but it'll escalate the case." I felt sick. More lies, more secrets. I agreed to pursue the account, but the decision left me hollow. Was I punishing Mom, or was I seeking justice? The line was blurring, and I wasn't sure I liked who I was becoming. That night, I dreamed of the old photo me, Mom, and Dad at my graduation. In the dream, the photo burned, the flames licking at our smiles. I woke up gasping, the weight of my choices pressing down. I wanted to reclaim my life, but at what cost? Would dragging Mom through more legal battles heal me, or would it only deepen the rift? As I sat at my desk, staring at the stack of Mom's letters, I made a decision. I'd confront her one more time, not in court but face to face. I needed to understand why she'd kept lying, even after everything. I needed to know if there was anything left of the mother I'd loved. The park was quiet, the autumn leaves crunching under my boots as I waited for Mom. I'd chosen this spot for our meeting, neutral ground, away from the memories of her house. When she arrived, she looked smaller, her coat swallowing her frame. "Emily," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, my throat tight. "I found out about the savings account," I said, cutting to the chase. "More lies, Mom." "Why?" Her face crumpled, but she didn't deny it. "I was scared," she admitted. "After your father's heart attack, I thought we'd lose everything. The account was a safety net." "A safety net built on my name," I said, my voice sharp. "You didn't just steal money, you stole my trust." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "I know," she said, tears falling. "I thought I could fix it, pay it back before you noticed. But it got out of control." I wanted to believe her, but the years of deception loomed large. We sat on a bench, the silence heavy between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice raw. "I was trying to protect you, Emily. I didn't want you to know how bad things were." "Protect me?" I laughed, bitter. "You ruined my credit, my dreams. I can't even get an apartment because of you." She flinched, but I pressed on. "And Dad knew. He let you do it. How am I supposed to forgive that?" She didn't have an answer, and neither did I. We sat there, two strangers bound by blood and broken promises. For the first time, I saw her not as my mother, but as a woman, flawed, desperate, human. It didn't excuse her, but it made her real. I left the park with no resolution, just a promise to keep talking. Back home, I threw myself into my blog, writing about the meeting. The responses poured in, people sharing their own fractured families, their own paths to healing. It gave me strength, a reminder that I wasn't defined by Mom's mistakes. Jake became a steady presence, his quiet support a balm for my wounds. One night, over dinner, I told him everything. He listened, his eyes never leaving mine. "You're not just surviving this," he said. "You're rebuilding. That's incredible." His words stayed with me as I navigated the legal fallout. Karen seized the hidden savings account, adding $10,000 to the restitution. It wasn't enough to clear the debt, but it was a start. Mom's probation officer reported she was complying, working extra hours to pay what she could. I didn't know if I'd ever see the full amount, but I was learning to let go of that expectation. Dr. Ellis helped me focus on boundaries. "You don't have to forgive her to move forward," she said. "You can choose what relationship you want, if any." That idea was freeing. I started setting limits, telling Mom we'd only talk through letters for now. She agreed, her responses filled with apologies and promises to change. I read them, but I didn't reply. Not yet. My credit score inched up, thanks to Karen's disputes and my relentless budgeting. I landed a better freelance contract, one that let me save for a new apartment. The dream job was still out of reach, but I was getting closer. Each step felt like a victory, a piece of my life reclaimed. One evening, I found a letter from Dad, the first in months. "I'm sorry," he wrote. "I failed you as a father. I'm trying to make it right." Enclosed was a check for $5,000. His savings, he said, to help with the debt. I cried reading it, not for the money, but for the acknowledgement. It was a start. As winter settled in, I felt a shift. The anger was still there, but it wasn't all-consuming. I was building a life on my terms, not Mom's lies. The road ahead was long, but for the first time, I felt like I was walking it with purpose. Spring brought a tentative hope, like the first buds on barren trees. My credit score crept past 600, and I moved into a small apartment, a victory won through months of grit. The walls were bare, but they were mine, free of Mom's shadow. Yet, even as I rebuilt, the past clung to me, stubborn and heavy. Mom's letters kept coming, each one a mix of remorse and hope. "I'm taking a financial literacy course," she wrote in one. "I want to understand what I did wrong." I didn't know if I believed her, but I kept reading, searching for the mother I'd lost. Dad's letters were rarer, but each one carried weight. "I'm seeing a counselor," he wrote. "I need to fix what's broken in me." Their efforts stirred something in me, hope, maybe, or just exhaustion. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I was tired of carrying the anger. Dr. Ellis suggested a family meeting, mediated by a professional. "It's not about reconciliation," she said. "It's about closure, whatever that looks like for you." I agreed, and we set a date at a community center, a neutral space with soft chairs and a calming vibe. Mom and Dad arrived together, looking nervous but determined. The mediator, a kind woman named Laura, set ground rules. Honesty, respect, no interruptions. I went first, laying out a decade of hurt. "You made me feel worthless," I said, my voice shaking. "Every time I was rejected for a job or a loan, I felt like a failure. But it was you. Your choices." Mom cried, her hands twisting in her lap. "I thought I was saving us," she said. "I was wrong, Emily. I see that now." Dad spoke next, his voice rough. "I should have stopped her. I was scared of losing her, losing our life. I chose wrong." Their words were raw, unguarded, but they didn't erase the pain. I didn't forgive them that day, but I listened. Laura guided us through the hurt, helping us map a path forward. We agreed to monthly meetings, a slow step toward something new. Not the family we'd been, but maybe something honest. Outside those meetings, I leaned on Jake and Sarah. Jake designed a logo for my blog, which was gaining traction. A local news outlet picked up my story, anonymously, and suddenly I was fielding messages from others who'd survived identity theft. Their stories fueled me, reminding me why I kept fighting. Karen called with an update. The restitution was up to $15,000, but the remaining debt would take years to clear. "You've done everything right," she said. "Focus on your future now." I was trying. I enrolled in an online marketing course, determined to rebuild my career. Each lesson felt like a brick in a new foundation. One night, Jake cooked dinner at my place, and we talked about the future, travel, dreams, maybe a life together. "You're not your past," he said, squeezing my hand. "You're what you're building now." His belief in me was a lifeline, pulling me toward hope. But the past wasn't done. A letter arrived from Mom, longer than the others. She'd sold her car, she wrote, to add to the restitution. "It's not enough," she said, "but it's what I can do." Enclosed was a check for $3,000. I stared at it, torn between gratitude and resentment. Was this penance, or another attempt to buy forgiveness? I called Dr. Ellis, needing perspective. "She's trying," she said. "It doesn't mean you have to forgive her, but it's a step." I deposited the check, not for Mom, but for me, a step toward closing the financial wound. As summer approached, I stood in my apartment, looking at the bare walls. I hung a photo, not the old one from graduation, but a new one of me, Jake, and Sarah at the art show. It was a reminder of the life I was building, one choice at a time. The scars of Mom's betrayal would always be there, but they didn't define me. I was more than her mistakes. A year after the credit report shattered my world, I stood at a crossroads. My credit score hit 650, a hard-won milestone. I'd landed a full-time marketing job. Not the dream role, but a solid step. My apartment was home now, filled with plants and photos of new memories. Yet, the shadow of Mom's betrayal lingered, a quiet ache I'd learned to live with. The family meetings continued, each one a mix of pain and progress. Mom was different now, humbler, more open. She'd paid $20,000 in restitution, scraping together every penny from her job and side gigs. Dad was trying too, attending therapy and sending occasional checks. Their efforts didn't erase the past, but they showed me something new: accountability. At our last meeting, Mom handed me a letter, her hands trembling. "Read it later," she said. "Please." I nodded, unsure what I'd find. Back home, I opened it, bracing myself. It was a timeline of her mistakes. Every loan, every lie laid bare. At the end, she wrote, "I took your trust, and I'll spend my life earning it back. You don't have to forgive me, but I'll never stop trying." I cried reading it, not just for the pain, but for the honesty. For the first time, I saw a path to something like forgiveness. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that lets you move on. I wrote back, a short note. "I'm not ready yet, but I'm listening." It was small, but it was enough. Dad invited me to dinner, just the two of us. We met at a quiet diner, the kind we used to visit when I was a kid. He looked older, his eyes heavy with regret. "I failed you," he said, his voice breaking. "But I'm proud of you, Emily. You're stronger than I ever was." His words healed something I didn't know was broken. We talked for hours, not about Mom or the debt, but about life. My job, my blog, Jake. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. My blog had grown into a platform for survivors, a space where we shared stories and strength. I spoke at a local event, my voice shaking as I told my story to a room of strangers. Their applause, their tears, reminded me why I'd kept going. I wasn't just Emily the victim, I was Emily the fighter. Jake proposed on a quiet evening, under a sky full of stars. It wasn't grand, just a simple question and a ring he'd designed himself. I said yes, my heart full. He knew my scars, my story, and he loved me anyway. Planning a future with him felt like a promise to myself. I was more than my past. The final restitution check arrived a month later, bringing the total to $25,000. It didn't clear the debt, but it closed a chapter. Karen called it a victory, and I agreed. The money mattered, but the real win was my life. My job, my home, my voice. I visited Mom one last time before moving forward. She opened the door, her face softer now, less guarded. We didn't hug, but we talked about her classes, my job, the weather. It was awkward, but it was honest. "I'll keep trying," she said as I left. "I know," I replied, and I meant it. Standing in my apartment that night, I looked at the photo of me, Jake, and Sarah. It was my anchor, a reminder of the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Mom's mistakes had shaped me, but they didn't own me. I was writing my own story now, one of resilience, love, and hard-won hope.